everybody. Today I have with me author and psychotherapist Dr. Patrizia Collard, and I am so honored to have you on my show. I've read your books and I love you, and I've seen all your YouTube, and I knew I wanted to interview as soon as I saw you on YouTube. I was like, yes, I want to ask her. So I'm so grateful that you said yes to me.
Welcome, and I'm really grateful that you asked me.
Okay, so today I want to talk about, I know you've written so many books, but this book, and I don't know if it's your current book. Is this your current book?
No, my last one is actually a children's book called
Oh,
Tips the Meditation Cat. So, because there are just so few children books on meditation, and so
yes.
many of my students and clients have children, and they say mindfulness is great, but how do I actually explain to my child what it is? And therefore I've written a book about my own cat, which is called Tybalt. Tybalt, the Prince of the Night, out of Romeo and Juliet. And so the cat is the main character, and he really meditates with us when we meditate and practice. And so the
Oh,
book is called Tips the Meditation Cat.
that's awesome. Well, this one has, how long has this been out? It's called
About
Mindfulness Bible.
about a year and a bit.
Okay. The thing I have to tell you, I don't know who your publisher is. I did not look that up. But I have to tell everybody, I don't know if you can see, I mean, this is one of the most beautiful books that I'm a book person, okay? And when I open up a book and I see this is done so beautiful, the pictures, the type, it kept me reading all the way to the end because it was just so well made. I mean, this is a great
I think
book.
it's Gaia House Publishing, and they actually do the Bible series is something that is their speciality. And so when a topic is really important for the general public to know, they create a Bible. So there is a gemstone Bible, a yoga Bible, a Pilates Bible, and then there is a chakra Bible, and now there is a mindfulness Bible.
That is awesome. And I mean, everything you want to know about mindfulness is in this thing. And when I didn't know, because when I was watching, your videos, and I was like, mindfulness, that's a term, we have so many other terms for stress and de-stressing, and, and I was like, I love that term. I haven't heard it a lot, but I think that kind of, makes you think about, yes, as I was reading it, I was like, yes, mindfulness, like staying in whatever you're doing. And that's what I got out of this. But I got so much out of it, but that is one of the things that I got out of it was, how to stay inside, how to appreciate. Today when I went and got coffee, and I was like, I want to appreciate this cup of coffee. I'm drinking this amazing cup of coffee right now. It tastes so good. Sometimes we get a cup of coffee, we swig it down, we're doing 10 other things, and I think I think that
so Michael tries to keep you in connection with the one thing that is your present moment experience. So most children know about it, because if you watch a child build a sand castle or draw a picture, they're fully engaged with it, and they really don't like you to call them for a meal or for any other duties, because they're really connected. So all of us are born with the ability to be mindful, and then life happens to us and we have to do more and more things, and so we slowly move from human beings being humans to human doings, and human doings actually very often forget about what it's like to be truly connected to a special thing like a cup of coffee.
Yes, and I have 6 children. I raised 6 children. And I was thinking back, I only have 2 at home right now. And so it seems easy compared to when I had all 6 of them. But I wondered if you could explain to me, because you do go so much into the brain on here, is my children will come, my older children, the ones that are in their 20s, will come back to me and say, remember when we used to do this? And I'm like, no. And I have a good memory. I really don't think it's a lapsed memory. I think there's something else going on. And when I read this, I was like, maybe you could explain it better, but is it because I was so busy trying, like making this person happen, driving this one here, but while I'm driving this one here, I'm calling the other one. And so why don't I remember the little, like they'll say, oh, remember every New Year's Day we used, you always did this? No, I don't remember that. Like, why don't I, I don't want it to think that it's Alzheimer's, early onset Alzheimer's. I want it to think it's something else,
Well, I mean, I think when I think of a mother of 6, I immediately sense a little bit of a sort of, wobbly feeling in my stomach because I've only got 2 and a cat, and I found that was hard work. So my hat off for you for having managed that. But basically, when we are overstretched in our capacity of doing things, if there are too many duties that need to be attended to simultaneously, we unwittingly switch on what we call the stress response. Yes, the sympathetic nervous system switches on because you don't feel any longer fully capable of dealing with all these different things at once. And once you switch on the stress response, then actually certain chemicals are released in the body, adrenaline, noradrenaline, and also cortisol. And these chemicals help you to survive. But they actually have a side effect, and that means that very often short-term memory, and sometimes even longer-term memory of not such important things, get lost. What this stress response does want you to remember, however, are the things that could potentially be dangerous. Yeah. So potentially be dangerous. In the past, it was the saber-toothed tiger or another tribe that might attack us. Nowadays, it's being stuck in traffic, being late, getting one child to the music lesson and the other one to football or whatever. And those are our new stressors. And when we are basically stewing in our own stress chemicals, then those bits of information don't get properly stored. Yeah. So the individual child will remember because they were only remembering the one story, whereas you were trying to deal with a number of them simultaneously. So it's not your fault. Okay. It's a very normal response.
Good. I was trying to understand that when I was reading this and reading about stress, and I think back to those days when they were all home, and I wish I could redo them at this age because I'm a little bit, less.
One learns, yeah.
Of course. And when you said that about keeping them safe, well, part of that time I was a single mom, okay? And so their safety was all on me. The dad was absent, gone. So I did think about that. It was like, every night I was like, they're still alive and they're fed. Okay, I can go to sleep now. Like,
fantastic. Yes, you've done your job.
Right, right.
The mammal mother, feeding them, keeping them safe, keeping them warm. Job done. Yes.
Yes, so there was a lot of things I think I missed, and
No, I mean I feel the same, and I often think in retrospect, I wish I had kept a diary, not like every day, but maybe once a week, of writing down some of the sort of, the very important bullet points of the week that I don't want to forget, so that I remember, 10, 20 years from now. But when we are so busy, we don't even find time for doing that.
Yeah, and another interesting thing is that I have 7 grandchildren right now. Okay.
Oh, well done.
Like they, my older children just boom, they like had instant children, 2 and 3 each, and I find, okay, so I still have 2 children at home. I'm still raising 2 boys. And the older ones will call me, this one's doing this one's doing, grandchildren-wise. And I find that I can't connect. There's this disconnection, that happens because it's like, I'm glad they're doing it. And of course I love them. But their day to day, it's almost like, I don't know. I see other grandparents on Facebook and, they're just so involved with their grandchildren. And a lot of my grandchildren don't live in my area. So that also is,
Exactly. So distance is one reason. And the other reason is that you still are bringing up 2 of your own and therefore you're not like many other grandparents that have had 10, 20 years of a break. Yeah.
Yes.
With you, it seems to have been ongoing. And so, from a compassionate and mindful perspective, I would say, give yourself a little bit of a break, give yourself some self-compassion, and, you're good enough, you're doing well enough, because you've still got two at home.
Well, I thank you for that. I didn't mean this to turn into, our therapy session, but, it is what I was thinking about when I was reading, because a lot of times I do, and I think what I'm thinking a lot of other people can relate to, when they're,
Yes.
because we try to be, this is the age of everything's instant. It's on Facebook, it's on Instagram, it's on, you're seeing other people
Yes.
and you're like, I want to do, I'm failing because look at them. Their lives are going really well and my life is not going that well and I'm not that person and I'm not. And I think that everybody gets caught up in that. I think we get caught up in the social media. When I was a young mom, we didn't have that. I didn't have to post on Facebook that I took my kids to the...
And change your phone every year and get used to new technology. Everything has got out of control. So in a way, the whole society is slightly stressed. And we have something in our brain that's called mirror neurons. So they reflect, the sensations and emotions of people that we are close to. So if you think that, the majority of people are stressed in one way or another because of transport, long travels, family commitments, work commitments, etc. So if another person that you get, close to within 3 or 4 feet, and they have anxiety or stress in their brain happening, you will pick that up. Your brain will pick it up. You've probably experienced that, entering a room and suddenly feeling there is an atmosphere, as if people had had a fight or whatever. They probably had a fight, and your mirror neurons are reflecting it.
Interesting.
Yes.
I love
that.
The
brain is fascinating.
The brain
I mean, if you want to read a really good book, I think that also gives a lot of understanding of the brain. It's called Into the Magic Shop. Have you read that one?
No.
It's not by me.
But that's good. I mean, that's awesome. And I love that, the mirroring thing, because I do feel like that. And what I always think is funny is I'm going to tell you this because I know that my daughters and daughter-in-laws do not watch me. They aren't that interested. But they're busy. But they'll post on Facebook or Instagram pictures. Like my daughter will post a picture like, this is what I made for dinner for my family or something. And I'm like, okay, she only does that once a week. Like, I had to make dinner every night. I'd like, can you imagine me posting, made dinner again, yay, everybody clap, because then she gets all these likes like, oh my God, you are an amazing mom. You made dinner for your family tonight. It's a crazy, crazy world that we live in when you get applauded for, feeding your children.
Yes. Yes. And some people, just make selfies of themselves every day. And the thought of making picture of myself every day is not particularly attractive for me, No,
not, well, it's like, okay, so our mind, so what I think that this book brings it back to, we can get so caught up in that. Like, my children will post on Facebook every, hour, it seems like. I have so many of them, and then they'll text me like, did you see this? Did you see this? Did you see this picture? I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to do something else besides that. I want to breathe. I want to do
experience.
I want to do, but everybody is very, and I think that, not that I'm against social networks, but I think this book takes you back to, let's get back to experiencing life instead of taking a picture of it and trying to get 100 people to like it every day. That's not experiencing it. I don't believe.
Exactly. Absolutely. And one of my main hobbies is diving, scuba diving.
Oh, nice.
And I find it really fascinating when you go diving, and it's all so calm and still, and you see beautiful, colorful beings, and then suddenly somebody sort of kicks you from the side, and you've got one of those divers with a huge camera. I mean, the camera is almost the size of his own body. And, and he's just there to take a picture of this crab or this fish. And then you think to yourself, why is he not just really experiencing it now? He will only experience it once he develops those pictures. So I, on purpose, never take a camera. I've got a little notepad where I write down if I see something unusual that I don't recognize. And then I fully, allow myself to experience that dive.
Yes. Right. I don't believe it's the same kind of, I always feel like going back to the old days of, not that I don't love pictures, and I have a lot of pictures of my children, but their children, my grandchildren, will never lack for a picture. Okay, those children are photographed like every day.
Every day, several times.
I don't even know how you would sort through that. But I love the idea of like writing it down. I love that your exercises in this book are about writing it, because I think there's something that a connection about the memory, and that's why you said you wish you would have written it down. I bet, because when you write it, you're are you not imprinting? I mean,
first of all, you use at least 3 different senses. You use your sense of thinking, your sense of vision, and your sense of touch when you actually write things down. So whether you do it manually or whether you do it on your computer. So more senses are involved, and therefore more focus will be there, and therefore the memory will already be instilled more deeply into your memory lanes than when you just think, oh, I'll remember that, and then of course you don't.
Yeah, I think we've really gotten away from that part, and that's what I love with your exercises. It's like, write it, take the minute, write it down. Experience, what were you thinking? What were you, in any of the meditations and then I think that you can experience things. And it's really interesting. So I have an interview coming up with this woman who wrote a book on Queen Victoria, and I love English history. I love English history. But what I've been reading are Victoria's diary. Mm-hmm. That woman kept a diary. I mean, she was very, very, and we have all get to gain the knowledge of what life was like for her because of her diaries. And, I feel like we've kind of lost that part, and,
I mean, she had lots of children, but remember that she had wet nurses and she didn't have to cook. And she probably had more time than the average mother.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I didn't know much. Our history is very not good about, giving us a lot of, I didn't find I learned a lot in history, but when I looked her up, and I'd heard of her, I was like, 9 children, I am very impressed by her. But, if I were queen, maybe I could have had 9 children. So, yeah.
So,
but
what else would you like to know or ask me?
What else did I love about your book?
Yeah.
Well, I kind of, I took notes as I was going just so I could remember some of the things. And in your second part, when you write the 8-session mindfulness course, I wrote down the 8 steps because I wanted to remember them, to do them. And the first one was stepping out of autopilot. Okay?
Yes.
And that's what I think you were saying what I was doing as, a young mom. That's what we do, autopilot.
We were in autopilot most of the time, and unless you step out of it, it's very difficult to remember. When we are in autopilot, we are not fully focusing on one thing. We sort of go through the motions. And, even if you just think about crossing the road or driving with your car or your bicycle, unless you are paying attention, all sorts of things can go wrong. So being on autopilot actually means that A, we are potentially more in danger, and B, we're also not enjoying individual aspects of life as much as we could.
Right.
So stepping out of this autopilot mode is the first step in the mindfulness program. Yes.
Okay, and then next is dealing with barriers.
Yes.
And when you describe the barriers, I was really intrigued by it because I was like, oh, I never thought of those as barriers. Like, I never thought of thought barriers. But then I was like, everybody has thought barriers. We all have thoughts that stop us from,
Yes, it's thoughts, but it's also the main sort of purpose of the second chapter is really to show people that we can find all sorts of excuses, in brackets, barriers, that hold us back from actually giving ourselves this half hour per day where we can fully experience one thing. So usually you're recommended to do one meditative practice a day, but also one everyday mindfulness practice, like drinking your cup of coffee or washing, shampooing your hair and drying it, or opening the car door or bringing the garbage out. I mean, all those actions are individual actions that that we do. But if we actually say half an hour a day, I want to give to myself to practice a breathing or a body scan meditation, and then to enjoy the first 3 spoonful of my breakfast cereal, for example, we suddenly find all sorts of excuses, barriers, why we don't have time to do that. And then I say to people, well, do me that favor, and for a week or whatever, write down a daily schedule, what you do from getting up to going to bed. And then tell me with all honesty, don't you think anywhere there you can find maybe one 20-minute slot and one 10-minute slot for yourself to nourish your soul and your mind? In Chinese, mindfulness also means heartfulness. So mindfulness is also connecting back to our heart, to our emotions, to truly being alive and not just rushing through life. Because, the thing is, we don't know how much we've got. Life is precious. This moment is precious. And so dealing with barriers, the second chapter is very much trying to help people to create little, pockets of time for themselves. Just like nowadays, very few people would argue with brushing their teeth. I mean, it's revolutionized the world, because there are so many people now who actually die with their own teeth. I mean, in the 1940s, 50s, people had false teeth by the age of 40 or something like that. So a simple act of twice a day brushing and flossing your teeth has revolutionized our health. And mindfulness is the same thing for your mind and your soul. Yeah, sort of feeding, nourishing, recharging, replenishing your emotions and your sensations.
I love that. And then next is breathing, which
Yes.
just taking in your breath. And that's always been an issue with me. I have to always stop and go. Like, I can find myself and I wonder what's wrong with me, and I realize I'm breathing up here. It's not a full breath, and taking that time, which is why meditation is good too, to lay there and actually just breathe.
Yes.
We're not used
and
to
you give yourself that time to just breathe. And you give yourself permission and don't feel this is wasting time, because it's not wasting time.
Right.
The thing is, what we find is people who practice mindfulness, because they are in general calmer, not all the time, but more often than people who don't practice mindfulness, they will actually get things done in a much more effective way. Because when you're calmer and more focused, you're more effective.
Exactly.
So, the time that you take away from certain aspects of doing and get into being will actually reward you plentiful.
Yes. And we already talked about staying present. We already talked about that. And let it be and accept.
Yes.
And
that's a difficult one.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love the part when you said, see your past as a movie.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. I was like, oh, okay. Like, because just let it be. Don't think you can fix it. You can't fix it. So stop trying to fix it,
Yes.
Just let it be.
I mean, certain things, of course, it all depends what it is. Certain things we can look at and then we have to accept they happen. There's nothing we can do anymore. But there are other things that we first need to accept before we can actually do something about it. So, for example, if you notice, because you become more mindful, that you have a little bit of some stomach pain, maybe a bit of acid stomach, you first need to become aware of it and accept it. And then you can say, okay, I'm going to check. Maybe I'm allergic to some food. Maybe I'm eating too fast. Maybe I'm drinking too much sodas. I will see whether I can sort it out myself, but once I've accepted it. And then if that's not good enough, then I go and see my physician and see whether something can be done. So it's not about accepting and just saying, okay, now I just suffer till I die, but it's accepting first and then, making a considered decision of what to do about it. And certain things we simply can't change, and other things we can change. But in both cases, we first need to accept it and bring awareness to it.
Awesome. I love that. That is awesome. This is my favorite step, though. Thoughts are not facts.
Yay!
Thoughts. Did you ever hear Byron Katie?
Yes, of course.
And her revelation.
I've been to workshops with her. Yes.
Oh, did you? Okay, and she's the one that I first ever heard that from. But when I love the way you explained it, and I just wrote her name in here because I was like, Byron Katie. She said you have to, is it a fact? Is what you're thinking a thought, or is it a fact that what you're thinking? I do that all the time. Because negative thoughts, I'm fat. Is that true? Am I fat? Or do I have to say that? Or,
So, again, we come back to neuropsychology, to the brain. We've got a particular neural pathway, which is deep. If you were to drill down from here and down from there, and then take that deep section of the brain, this is called the default mode network, DMN. Default mode network. And this network has actually helped us to survive, because as a species, we are not very strong. We are relatively tall, walking just on 2 feet. We haven't got claws. We don't have big teeth. We don't have, furry or shell-like outer protection. So as a species, we are very vulnerable to other species. And the default mode network was created by Mother Nature to help us to be very, very alert if we hear or see or notice anything that might potentially be dangerous. So you're walking through a wood, suddenly you see a long, brown, slim thing, you stop, you look. Is this a snake? Oh, no, it's just a twig. It's just a branch. I can step over it and just continue. So the default mode network basically keeps us constantly checking and making sure that nothing untoward can happen to us. So Mother Nature gave it to us so that our species could survive. But Mother Nature didn't care whether we were having a good time surviving. Yeah? Because constantly having to worry about what could happen is actually very strenuous.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
So to realize, and this is a practice, how we can, because we are also talking about the brain being neuroplastic. So everything in the brain can be changed through practicing certain things. And meditation helps us to diminish the activity of the default mode network, to basically make us calmer and not have so many negative thoughts. Or it also helps us to become aware, oh, that's just one of my typical, negative thought patterns.
Right.
I'm fat, I'm old, I'm not tall enough, I'm not short enough, I'm not intelligent enough, and all these kind of things. Everybody has them. And if I then say to my clients, and if I said to you now, you look like a green frog, would you start hopping about and quacking? And they say, no, of course not. I said, so this is a negative thought. I look like a green frog, but you don't believe it. So it's not disturbing you. But if it's something like, I'm old or I'm not pretty enough, suddenly you believe that, although we all know that beauty is in the eye of the beholder,
Right.
and that beauty is different for a toddler and for a young person, for a middle-aged person, for an old person. They can all be beautiful within their particular range of age, you know?
Yes.
Of course, you will never look like a 12-year-old again.
And who wants
Let's
to?
just, you know.
And who really wants to? All right, we'll quick go through 7 and 8 because I know you have to get going.
Yes.
How can I best take care of myself? Enjoying enjoying eating well, enjoying exercising, taking care. Every night, all through my motherhood, I take a bath. Okay?
Wonderful, yes.
And the children know unless somebody is bleeding, you do not knock on that door. I enjoy that bath. That is my treat after,
You have a little sign on your door that says, "Do not disturb."
Must be bleeding.
Yeah.
But I was thinking, that's what I wrote down when I was like, that is something I enjoy, and I'm going to try to enjoy more things, but I enjoy that, and from the moment my eyes open up in the morning, I'm like, and I get to take a bath tonight, so it's all okay. Everything that happens in between,
And the more mindful you are, the more of the little joys of life, the bird song, the butterfly that passes by, some music that you hear from a passing car, the little moments of joy will be delivered to you if only you pay attention.
Yes.
So you don't have to, it's great that you have your bath, but I hope that after this conversation and by practicing things from the book, you will find many more moments of joy throughout the day.
I definitely am going to take your advice and, like even when I'm driving, turn down the radio and,
Yeah, and when you're driving, feel the wheel and notice your environment and sit in the car and, and even if it's difficult, even when you're stuck in traffic or even if you have to queue in the supermarket, you can either say, "Poor me, oh, woe is me, I'm stuck again." Or you could say, "I've got a car. I actually own a car. I am mobile," or "I'm in the supermarket with a full trolley full of food and drink. And isn't it a great privilege when I know that half of the earth is still starving to have this trolley?" Yes. So let's not get so impatient about whether we pay 5 minutes earlier or later.
Right, and make it not so much of a chore. And then
these are the negative thoughts that we can let go of because they are just, a pattern. But we can recreate new thinking patterns.
And to slow down, not be impatient with the person in front. Slow down. Just
exactly.
Take it in,
How much time do you really save? Because if you imagined you were in the supermarket and there was, a friend of yours with you and would tell you an interesting story, you wouldn't even notice how long you've been standing in the queue.
Exactly. You'd want it to take longer, Exactly.
Yes, you want it to take longer so you have more time for the story.
Yes, exactly.
So it's a question of interpretation. Yes. So there is nothing bad, but thinking makes it so.
Right.
Who said that? Very famous. Hamlet.
Oh, Hamlet, yes. Yes.
Nothing good or bad, but thinking makes it so.
Correct.
So we can incline our minds towards the good or towards the bad.
Yes.
This is our privilege.
Yes.
And the more we practice mindfulness, the more often it will happen that we will have these moments of, this is beautiful. Yeah.
Yes, and that's why I want to thank you so much for writing this book, because everybody, that was just the tip of the iceberg, okay? What is awesome about this book are the stories, okay? And we didn't read the book because every chapter has stories and you're going to love the stories and you will, and owning this, like I said, this book is beautifully done. I am so happy with it and I'm such a book person. Look at that cover. It's just beautiful. It's just beautiful. And for everybody out there, I want you to say your name since I butchered it. The way you say it is beautiful. So I'd like you to tell everybody how you pronounce your name.
Patrizia Collard.
That's beautiful. That's absolutely a beautiful name. So thank you so much for taking this time for me. It was such an honor to meet you and to talk to you. So
thank you so much.
Yes.
And you have a wonderful, mindful time.
I will. Thank you. You too. Have a great day.